Call this meeting to order. This is a regular scheduled meeting of January 18, 2011. Madam Clerk, please do the roll call.
Ms. Osiander? Here. Mr. Gutierrez?
Here.
Mr. Honeman?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Starr?
Here.
Mr. Flynn?
Present from afar.
Mr. Flynn is joining us via telephone. Mr. Trainee?
Here.
Ms. Johnston? Here. Ms. Gray Jackson? Honored to be here. Mr. Birch?
Here.
Ms. Drummond?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item of business, Pledge of Allegiance. Harriet, could you lead us in the pledge, ma'am, please?
Gladly, Mr. Chair.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item of business is minutes of previous meetings. We've got two of them. Item 4A is our regular meeting, December 7th, 2010. If I can get a motion on the minutes. Any amendments or changes need to be made by the body? Ask unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, those minutes are approved. Patrick, how do you vote on the minutes?
I'm in favor.
Okay. Those are approved, Madam Clerk. The next item is item 4B, regular meeting, December 14th, 2010.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Any objection to approval of those minutes? Seeing no objection, Madam Clerk, those minutes are approved. Patrick?
No objection, sir.
Thank you, sir. That's everybody. Mayor's report, Mr. Mayor, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As everyone knows, yesterday was a holiday commemorating Martin Luther King Jr., and I had the pleasure to attend the performances at the PAC on Sunday, which were just outstanding. A wide variety of cultural presentations and great comments by all, and it was a very, very worthwhile event. And so that's it for my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item in business is Assembly Chair's report. There is not one, so we'll do committee reports. Debbie? Mike?
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Paul?
Had a public safety committee meeting on the 12th, and we had a discussion, fairly good discussion on the lack of taxi cab or transportation available, particularly at Bar Break on the holiday hours. And we were very blessed to be able to have the Public Safety Advisory Commission as well as the Transportation Commission in presence, and we will be following that up likely in the March meeting with perhaps some solutions, potential solutions for that.
Good. Ernie?
No report.
Bill?
The Budget and Finance Committee meeting for Thursday, the 20th, is canceled.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
The Energy Task Force has finished their annual report, and included in that is approach to look at energy projects, and it's been given to the mayor, and I will have copies for the Assembly once it's been finalized.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a report, but I just want to take a moment and thank the sit-in Assembly members who in 1999 made Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A municipal holiday, because frankly it really made a big difference in how people react in this community and participate in this community. And this past weekend was full of absolutely wonderful events that I attended, some of them since Friday, but I was also at the event that the mayor was on Sunday. And to look and see all the diversity in our community and the talent of our youth, it was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Yes,
Chris.
I did meet with and at the invitation of the Chamber of Commerce. I met with their municipal committee last week. They requested, and we provided a detailed review of the Taxpayer Protection Act, and they came forward with a unanimous affirmative recommendation out of that committee, and that will go to the full Chamber Board on this Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Harriet?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a committee report, but I, too, did participate yesterday in the day on as opposed to the day off. I laid some hands on the one of the 50 bikes for 50 kids at the Spenard Rec Center, and I second that observation of diversity that Ms. Gray Jackson made a moment ago. The young lady whose bike I was helping to assemble is from Somalia. She was there with her friend from Iraq. These two young ladies were conversing in Arabic, and their teacher supervisor was a Russian woman named Olga, and the accents and the conversation were just delightful. And this was a room full of kids like this, working on getting these gorgeous new bicycles that the community has come together to gift to them, and there were dozens and dozens of volunteers from all over the community. I was working with a group of Coast Guard members, and it was just delightful, and I was so thankful for the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Harriet. Patrick, committee report.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just as you know, the Port Committee met last week, and it was, I guess, encapsulated in the local paper on Sunday. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Change your order today. Let's take up item 11A. That's Resolution AR 2011-17. If we could.
Second?
Moved and seconded to change the order of the day to take up that item, and it was moved by Debbie and seconded by Mike to go ahead and approve the item. Ask unanimous consent. And Paul. Ask unanimous consent from the body. Should no objection, that item is approved. That's Resolution AR 2011-17. And this recognizes our friend on his passing, Larry Crawford. Mayor, I understand you and Vikalis are presenting, and Debbie, you're reading.
Yes, sir.
If you'd like to read it, ma'am. And Susan's here.
This is a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly honoring and remembering Senior Policy Advisor and former Chief of Staff Larry Crawford. Whereas Larry Crawford served the citizens of Anchorage for many decades as Budget Director shortly after unification in 1975, as Municipal Manager under Mayors George Sullivan, Tom Fink, Rick Mystrom, and as Chief of Staff to Governor Bill Sheffield and Mayor Dan Sullivan. Whereas Larry graduated from the University of Washington with a degree in finance and accounting, became a CPA, and moved north to Alaska in 1974 to head the consulting practice of Arthur Young & Company, now Ernst & Young. Whereas Larry also served as General Manager and Executive Vice President of Multivision's Cable Company, Executive Director of the Alaska Power Authority, President and CEO of the Anchorage Economic Development Corporation. Whereas Larry was a recipient of the Harold E. Pomeroy Award as the Alaska Public Administrator of the Year from the American Society of Public Administration. Whereas Larry had a private consulting practice doing development of strategic plans, IT planning and implementation, and management and organizational reviews. Whereas Larry was the chair of Mayor-elect Dan Sullivan's transition team. Whereas Larry Crawford died at home on December 31st, after a courageous battle with cancer, leaving his wife, Susan Lindemuth, and many friends and family. Whereas Larry's wisdom, wit, and friendship will be greatly missed. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly resolves that Larry Crawford is honored and remembered for his many decades of service and commitment to the people of the municipality of Anchorage and the state of Alaska. Passed and approved this day.
I just want you to know that Larry would be very pleased and proud to receive this recognition. Thank you very much.
Susan, we have a couple of comments, if you don't mind staying with us for a minute, ma'am. Elby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Susan. Good to see you. I just want to start out with saying that I've known Larry Crawford and both Susan for many, many, many years. And I'm not going to take too much time, but I got a couple little stories I want to tell. You talk about fund balance and the end of the year money, that stuff. I'll tell you what, all the years that Larry Crawford worked for the municipality and was in the capacity of municipal manager, he made sure every single year, at the end of the year, we had some money left in fund balance because he made us a commitment to 2%, that's it. We got to save 2% in every single department by the end of the year. And I admired him for that. I didn't when it happened, but I do now. We had our differences, mostly because he worked for the mayor and I worked for the assembly, but we had a lot of respect for each other. And I got to give you one little example, and I hope Dan Moore is listening. I'll never forget, when I was staff, I walked into the conference room, we were getting ready to have a work session, and I sat down you know. And Dan Moore said, oh, no, you're sitting in Larry Crawford's seat. I said, oh, really? Well, when he gets here, he can ask me to move. Well, when Larry walked into the conference room, I looked at him, I said, Larry, Dan said that I'm sitting in your seat. Do you want me to move? He said, oh, no, you look better sitting there than I do. And I never forgot that. And also, one last thing, I know that Cheryl Clemenson is watching. Hi, Cheryl. I talked to her last night, and she expressed how much she admired Larry, and she wanted to make sure that I let everybody here tonight know that, and she was so adamant about it, that she asked me to ask the chair if she could be listed on the resolution as a former Assembly member. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Cheryl Clemenson wants to do that, huh? For Cheryl, I'll let her. I appreciate your husband because we play a game up here trying to count votes ahead of time. And Larry always had his crib sheet. He knew where the votes were before action was taken. It was always fun to see which one of us was correct on some members were going to vote. There's one that would remain anonymous, but Larry and I could always tell whoever talked to him last had his vote. So we'd keep a list on where we talked to him, and he was absolutely right on it. But thank you. He was just a wonderful person to work with. He did a good job for our town that we all love. Thank you. Any other comments from Assembly members? Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor. We're now back on our regular agenda. We've got the addendum to the agenda. If I get a motion to incorporate.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll go through it with you.
Mr. Chair, are you also going to lay it on the table
I'm
at the
also
same
going to
time?
read laid on after I get done with this one. Okay, we've got 9B3, Resolution AR 2011-25, a resolution appropriating a grant in the amount of $58,902 from State of Alaska Department of Transportation to State Category Grants Fund 231, Department of Law, for a motions and appeals attorney. There's an accompanying Assembly Memorandum, AM 61-2011. Item 9F13, under Ordinances and Resolutions for Introduction. There's Ordinance AO 2011-17, an ordinance appropriating $726,996 from the interfund loaned from the General Liability and Workers' Compensation Self-Insured Fund 602, Municipal Manager Department to the Anchorage Roads and Drainage Service Area CIP Fund 441, Public Works Department for Special Assessment District 04-25 for additional sediment removal from Campbell Lake and appropriating $150,000 as a restricted contribution from the Campbell Lake Owners Incorporated, amending Special Assessment District 04-25 for additional sediment removal from Campbell Lake by increasing the assessment amount and authorizing the proposed improvements therein. Public hearing request on 2/1/2011. There's an accompanying Assembly Memorandum, AM 62-2011. In addition to that, we have laid on the table items. I'm going to go through these with you. Item 9B4, Resolution AR 2011-26, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding renewal of beverage dispensary license 4529 for Zhang R. and Kenny H. Lee, doing business as Samurai Sushi Garden, located at 1626 Muldoon Road, Anchorage, Alaska, and authorizing the municipal clerk to take certain action from Assembly members Honeman and Gutierrez. Item 9B5, Resolution AR 2011-27, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding renewal of beverage dispensary license number 200 for Tempura Beverage, doing business as Carousel Lounge, located at 3206 Bernard Road, Anchorage, Alaska, and authorizing the municipal clerk to take certain actions. Assembly members Honeman and Gutierrez. Item 9B6, Resolution AR 2011-29, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding renewal of a beverage dispensary license number 2813 for Monica S. Wirtz, doing business as Peking Wong Restaurant, located at 3960 West Diamond Boulevard, Anchorage, Alaska, authorizing the municipal clerk to take certain action from Assembly members Honeman and Gutierrez. Item 9B7, Resolution AR 2011-30, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding renewal a beverage dispenser license number 201 for Little Dipper, Inc., doing business as Carpentier's Cocktail Lounge, located at 335 Boniface Parkway, doing Anchorage, Alaska, and authorize the municipal clerk to take certain action from Assembly members Honeman and Gutierrez. Under resolutions and ordinance of resolutions for introduction, item 9F14, Resolution AR 2011-28, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its conditional protest regarding renewal of beverage dispenser liquor license number 4157, doing business as Rum Runners Old Town Bar and Grill, located at 415 East Street, Anchorage, Alaska. Assembly members Honeman and Gutierrez. Public hearing requested on 2/15/11. Item 9F15, Ordinance AO 2011-30-18, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly submitting to the qualified voters of the Anchorage Municipality to regularly scheduled municipal election, April 5th, 2011, an advisory ballot proposition on whether the municipality of Anchorage should require mandatory photo identification for sale of alcohol by packaged liquor stores. From Assembly Member Traney and Assembly Member Osiander. Public hearing request on 2/1/2011. I'm trying to get to 4/1 fast, aren't I? Is there anything else to be added to the addenda or laid on the table? Not seeing any. Ask unanimous consent. Patrick? Is he still there? Do you have any opposition to those being added to our agenda?
I'd like to hold the advisory vote. We're not doing yet. At that point.
Okay. So you're right on those being added?
No problem.
Okay. Now we're going to go to those items that were pulled for a little further discussion. Patrick, we'll start with you, sir. Do you want to pull 9F15?
Yes, please.
Anything else?
That's all.
Jennifer?
No, thank you.
Elvie?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chris?
I'm looking at the late on the tables. That's the items that just came in, slid in here, and I just scanned through one of the resolutions on 9B4, 5, 6, and 7, and 9, primarily the ones that relate to the taking the, basically delegating to the this Public Safety Committee a public hearing in lieu of, and I guess I would like to not necessarily object to them, but if we pass a resolution here, then it doesn't come back before the body, correct?
It should come back in front of the body after it goes to public hearing. It should then come to us.
No, this is a consent agenda, resolutions for action. It's a resolution.
They have to be pulled. Let me ask. Dennis? Is it your understanding that if those items are approved, it goes to the public safety and doesn't come back to us? Or does it come back to the Assembly? Julia?
Through the chair, there is one that is set up for public hearing. And if the Assembly passes that, there will be public hearing, and before any other action is taken, or all action that's taken will have to be done by the Assembly.
That's 9F14.
Then there are 5 other ones where no public hearing is required. They are parallel to when there's something technical that needs to be furnished to the clerk's office. But in those, if instead of furnishing the proof that all servers have the required training, if instead of doing that, at the option of the licensee can request a full public hearing and an appearance in front of the Public Safety Committee, in which case it'll come back to the Assembly, because it will be at public hearing before the Assembly. But if they don't opt to do that, and if instead those 5 want to come to the clerk's office and show proof of TAMS training,
then the clerk's office, as they do with other things like the conditional use, these are modeled after the standard one that the Assembly does, which says that the clerk can inform the ABC board that the protest is lifted because the licensees have complied with the single condition that the Assembly has set.
Okay, so just
Chris,
for
there.
clarification, then the public hearing is not, it says the licensee may meet with the Public Safety Committee on notice as required and have the opportunity to attend and be heard at a public hearing. But the public hearing is not in front of the Public Safety Committee. It's basically a whole new entire public hearing in front of the Assembly?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. It's just a little confusing in the second.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Harriet?
No items, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Bill?
No items.
Ernie?
I'd like to pull 9F11.
Okay. Is that all? Ernie? Is that all you want to pull, Ernie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes, I'd like to pull, and they're likely laid up the table items here, 9 Bravo 3, correction, 4.
9 Bravo 3.
I'm sorry, 4, 9 Bravo 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Okay. Anything else you want to pull?
Did not mean to pull 3. That's it. That's
Didn't? Okay. Okay, you're pulling 9B4, 5, 6, and 7.
That's correct.
Okay. Mike?
9 Delta 2, Mr. Chairman, and that's all.
Thank you. Debbie? Administration? Anything else? Nothing? Okay. Sorry, your microphone might not have been on. Since we got to do a voice vote, so since Pat isn't with us, Madam Clerk, would you a voice vote on the consent agenda, including the addendum? Those things were not pulled for a little further discussion. We'll go back to each one of them.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston? Yes. Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Ms. Ostiander? Yes. Mr. Chairman, it's unanimous.
All the items that were not pulled are now passed by the Anchorage Assembly on the consent agenda. We're now going to go through the agenda for those things that were pulled for a little further discussion.
Mr. Trainee,
Yes, ma'am?
would it be all right if we took up Bravo 6 and 7 at the same time we do Delta 2 because they're the same items? Roughly? They deal with two of the same establishments?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if we approve 6 and 7, then we will have to go through the bifurcation process on Delta 2 that we did last
We got through
week.
it last week already.
Yeah, except 6 and 7 come before 9 Delta 2,
I know.
and I think that's why Ms. Ostiander.
I was just at roughly the same time. I thought it'd be clearer.
Okay. Let's take a look at dealing with Bravo 6 and 7, then we can deal with 9 Delta 2 when we get down to it. We're now going to go back for those items that are pulled for a little further discussion. And the first one is going to be, B3 was not pulled, so we're going to go to B4.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. Paul?
Yes. If you recall, we had bifurcated several of the license requests and renewals as they came through the Assembly Clerk's office. And I'll be the first to admit that the Public Safety Committee, being rather engaged in my first budget process, plus being out of town in November and December unexpectedly, was not able to work better with more closely with the Clerk's office to ferret out this should have been frankly, a process caught earlier in the cycle here. However, be that as it may, this and further discussions will be similar for these other agenda items, and that is these are some issues that are required by Municipal Code 10 on the TAMS card for this particular licensee at Samurai Sushi Garden. And as we read through the resolution here, essentially the last date of protest, their license is on January 28th. So it was believed that the best course action in working with the municipal council that we pull or enter a protest on this renewal until they meet the condition. In this particular case, they just need to show to the clerk's office proof the licensee will be in continued compliance with the municipal code and the TAMS and training cycle, so they could actually deliver this straight to the clerk's office and be in compliance. They also may, as the Assembly Council listed earlier, at their option, may want to meet with the Public Safety Committee to have a full hearing on the issue and have their process or their side to be heard. Just so you know, and for the members of the benefit of the members of the body, this is, even though it was outside the license period, in the previous license renewal period, this is a long-time operator, and they were cited then for a TAMS card violation and stated at that time they weren't sure through their attorney that they were required to have such an item. So it was concerning and enough to make sure that these folks are in compliance with municipal code and see if they've met their obligation.
Mike Gutierrez, you're next, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out again, as Mr. Honeman went over, that this is a conditional protest, and it all goes away without any need for anybody to come forward to this body if information is received by the clerk that the issue that was raised in the notice of violation has been addressed and has been taken care of. So if that's been addressed with ABC, then the whole thing goes away. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other comments from Assembly members? Madam Clerk, please conduct. Okay, Jennifer. Sorry.
I've heard from both of you. I just would like to ask the clerk's office if you can tell me if this is a big problem. Is it something you can deal with? Does it do anything as far as delay the license? What are we doing here? I'd like to know the next, the second question.
I'll start, Amanda can jump in if she has additional information. We haven't done this before in the past because this is really under the purview of the State Board. That when there's a notice of violation, it's their investigators that go out and notice it, and then they follow through. So we haven't done this, so we don't really know how many licenses are going to be affected and how much will be a problem. We called some of the licensees today, and it's my understanding that the people who were cited are no longer working for them. So this is new territory for us, but we've never done it before.
Jennifer?
So as far as sponsors of this resolution, what kind of proof will you need that these folks can, I see what you're trying to do here. I'm just a little worried that we're getting into fuzzy ground and we might be getting in over our heads. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Paul or Mike, whichever one the two of you.
It sounds to me, and I won't speak for Mr. Honeman, but if the clerk already has received information that in fact it's been addressed, if the person who was the one serving without the required state training no longer works there, then it seems to me we don't even need this. I would fall back on counsel. It's my understanding that conditional protest wouldn't stop anybody from continuing to do business. That's not the point. So that if we were to continue, that wouldn't be a concern. But if the person no longer works there, then I would say that satisfies Section 3, or rather Section 4. The Anchorage Assembly hereby authorizes the municipal clerk, upon confirmation that all conditions in Section 1 have been met, to provide written notification to the Alcoholic Beverage Control Board that this protest by the Anchorage Assembly is lifted without further action by the Assembly. I don't know. We've already pulled it, so I'm not quite sure how to proceed. I would rely on counsel for that.
Barbara will do that. Barbara?
I want to clarify, it was the deputy clerk that called certain establishments. I'm not guaranteeing that this one in particular was called, but it's kind of the nature of the business that servers come in and out, and it's, people rarely stay at one establishment for their whole careers. So there is a lot of movement. But do you know, Amanda, if this was one that was called?
Through the chair, we called this establishment this afternoon, and the 2 servers that were at this establishment are no longer there.
Then it would appear to me, Mr. Chairman, that the conditions have been met, sort of obviating the need for this particular resolution. But since we already pulled it out from the approvals that we handled last week, I'm not quite sure how to proceed.
Julia, should we vote it down, or?
Well, yeah.
Julia?
Yes, through the chair, the understanding that I had from Assemblymember Honeman wasn't that there was a particular violation that needed to be addressed, because that's what the ABC board does, but that there were any violations. What I understood that the sponsor wanted was confirmation that going into this period, that the people who were employed did have their TAM cards in place. Because apparently that's not what the ABC board checks going in, and that since it's a requirement of local code that they have their TAMS card, that and sometimes also part of the conditional use permit, that in this case, for ones who had, for establishments that had a violation and didn't seem to understand the code and how it worked locally during their last period, that they would demonstrate to the clerk's office that the people who were employed now had TAMS cards in place. So if I misunderstood in drafting this what Mr. Honeman's intent was, then I think the Assembly can take a different course of action.
Thank you, Julia. Paul?
Yeah, that in fact, Ms. Tucker actually explained it just better than I could, probably. That's because she's the counsel here. In fact, that is the case. The licensee simply has to sign a form stating that they understand Title IV and that their servers are meeting the municipal code requiring TAMs. Obviously, in 2 previous license periods, this previous one that's expiring and the one prior to that, they've shown violations of TAM, and so it is the intent of when we talked about the discussion of this issue that we do require this particular licensee under this resolution to show that they have current TAM cards for their employees, those that serve alcohol themselves, because they are responsible ultimately for any violations under their employees.
Paul, could I ask a question? What type of form are you talking about? Because the clerk tells me they don't have a form for that.
When they receive certification TAMS training, they actually receive a form from the state that's submitted through on request. The server test.
The servers have the server test. Okay, but the clerk's office doesn't. I'm trying to figure out how you envision
they would
doing that.
They would either fax it in, bring it in, or they could request a hearing and bring the proof of the forms to.
Madam Clerk.
For point of clarification, are you expecting that an establishment that would have 40 servers would fax in 40 pieces of paper? I'm just trying to clarify what.
Sure, they could fax, scan, email, text, bring a packet of a copy, just to show that they're current and that they have met the obligations under the TAM, under the code. It's actually a fairly simple process.
Thank you, Paul. Jennifer?
Well, I was coming in here sort of offering a solution as far as the resolution and maybe postponing it indefinitely, and we would deal with the license in 11B. But it sounds like the sponsor is still, so I'm still confused. When you called these establishments, you called as far as the 2 violations, but you didn't call to see if everybody else had their TAMS card. Did you ask that question, or?
Amanda?
Through the chair, we were just checking to see if the servers that were originally cited were still employed at each establishment.
And any further discussion about TAMS card? Did the owner say that they were concerned about TAMS cards? They had TAMS cards for their other servers, or they just said that those 2 had been?
They just stated that those 2 were no longer at Samurai Sushi.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Debbie?
The way I read the resolution, it was basically up to the clerk's discretion, and there wasn't anything outlined on specifically how you would determine that this was the case. So a question for our clerk. And that is that how you read it too? You would have the discretion to just determine, and that could be however you see fit that.
Debbie, I asked the clerk, and she said they didn't get it till 4 o'clock.
Okay. So my question to you now is reading it that way. Ms. Grinstein.
I believe we can come up with an adequate method of doing this. Yeah. It'll involve working with every establishment that has any violation, apparently.
Anything else, Debbie?
Okay, I guess I just initially thought it'd be easy. I thought it'd be just give them a call. But now I don't know about faxing 40 pieces of paper, so that's why I was asking.
Think of all those trees. Ernie?
I have a bit of a confusion about what's going on here. Are we basically stepping up and saying from this point forward we're going to take on ourselves the responsibility to validate that everybody working in one of these establishments has a TAMS card, even with a turnover of personnel in there? It just seems to me like we're asking for something we really don't want to take responsibility for here.
Thank you, Ernie. Paul?
Yes, and I hope I can ease everybody's concern and lessen their confusion. We're talking, particularly under 9 Delta 2, which we'll get to in a few moments, but there were 28 establishments for submitting their license for renewal under 9D2. Only 2 stood out with issues. So a high percentage of licensees that were very responsible, did everything they were supposed to do, received no violations on compliance checks whatsoever, essentially get a renewal with no protest upon submission. We're talking a very minority number, a very small minutia of operators or licensees who have had issues. And in this particular case, there were 2 license periods in a row, and we all know that compliance investigators are very scant. I mean, they just have very few for the entire state. And so to get 2 in a row, 2 different license periods in a row with the same violation, and particularly when this particular operators, through their attorney, said they weren't even aware of being in compliance with this code, that there was such a code. So we're simply asking that upon this renewal to show to the clerk's office, and I fully intend on the Public Safety Committee to come up with a better policy working with the clerk's office. If it means that someone, myself or someone from the Public Safety Committee, is tasked with making sure that's complied with by going out and physically inspecting without having to make copies. They own us on making them copies. I'd be more than willing to do that. But I urge support on this. This is simply making sure that we have people held accountable and being a responsible licensee in the Anchorage area. Thank you.
Mr. Gutierrez?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The issue in front of us is the approval of item 9B4. Madam Clerk, please conduct a voice vote.
Mr. Starr?
No.
Mr. Hall?
No.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Ms. Osiander?
I thought this was simple. Yes.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston?
No.
Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that passed.
That was approved. The vote was 8-3. Next one in front of us is pulled by you, Paul. That was item 9B5, Resolution Air 2011-27. Resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding renewal of beverage dispensary license number 200 for Tempo Brewing, doing business as Carousel Lounge, located at 3206 Bernard Road. Paul, I need a motion.
Move to approve.
Need a second, Mike?
Second.
Okay.
Sorry.
You guys are in tandem on this thing, I hope. Okay, Paul?
Yes.
On this one?
Without having a whole lot of discussion, unless someone is real confusion, this is a similar action. And the only concern that I have, and again, I checked with the clerk's office to find out how recent the ABC's reports are to the Anchorage Assembly, which I believe they're updated as court demand fairly regularly. But I do know of an August 2010 incident, again, where there was a TAM issue. So it's just a matter of making sure that they're in compliance with their required code. And at the same conditions, that they could do it on phone, they could email it in.
Amanda, do we know how this one is related to why they're at this point in their life. I mean, did they have their TAM, the individuals that were cited for not having TAM, do we know where they're at? Has the person still working there or gone or what?
Through the chair, for Carousel Lounge,
Yes.
I believe the person is still employed, but I'm not aware if they have their TAM card now or not.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Other discussion? Doesn't seem to be any. Please do a voice vote, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
No.
Mr. Hall?
No.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Ms. Osiander?
Yes.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Birch?
Yes.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston? No. Mr. Trainee?
Yes. That was approved. The vote was 7-4. Next one is item 9B6, Resolution Air 2011-29, the resolution of the English Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding renewal of beverage dispensary license number 2813 for Monica S. Rose doing business as Peking Wong Restaurant. Paul, I need a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mike? Moved and seconded. Paul? Same as last
This was
time?
the same as last, and the only issue on this one here was, there was also other violations, but the one that we're the most concerned with is of course, making sure they're in compliance with municipal code.
Okay. Discussion from assembly members. If not, Madam Clerk, we conduct the voice call vote.
Ms. Osiander? Yes. Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Step from the room.
Is he in the room?
No, he's not.
Mr. Starr?
No.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston? No. Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Birch? Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
And that was approved.
7-3? 8-2. Okay. That was approved 8-2. Next one in front of us is item 9B7, a resolution air 2011-30, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly stating its protest regarding renewal of beverage dispensary license number 201 for Little Dipper, Inc., doing business as Carpentier's Cocktail Lounge. Paul, I need a motion on that.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and second. In discussion on this one, Paul?
Pretty much the same conditions, sir.
Okay. No other discussion from assembly members. Madam Clerk, please conduct the voice vote.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Mr. Birch? Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston? Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
No.
Mr. Starr?
No.
Mr. Hall?
No.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Ms. Osiander?
7-4?
Yeah.
That was approved 7-4. Next item in business is item on the regular agenda. It's item 9D2, the same memorandum AM 45, 2011. If you remember the little exercise last week,
Move to approve.
Second.
and they need a motion to bifurcate.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to bifurcate and pull out from this two that we've just dealt with, Peking Wok Restaurant, license number 2813, and Carpentier's Cocktail Lounge, license number 201.
Second.
Moved and seconded. On the question of bifurcation is in front of us, since we just dealt with them, we probably need to. So ask unanimous consent. Pat, do you have any issue on that unanimous consent on bifurcation? Thank you. We'll now vote on the rest of them. So if we could do a voice vote on item 9D2, same memorandum, AM 45, 2011, with the exception of those two that we bifurcated on. This will approve the balance of them. Madam Clerk, please conduct a voice vote.
Okay, Ms. Osiander? Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
Mr. Honeman?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Starr?
Yes.
Mr. Flynn?
Yes.
Mr. Trainee?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston? Yes. Ms. Gray Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Birch? Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
That item was approved unanimously. Now we're going to go back to deal with the bifurcation. Mike?
Mr. Chairman, we've already passed the resolutions to deal with those two we pulled out, so I'm not sure there's anything further we need to
Leave
do.
these two alone then. They'll come up in the next agenda, and by that time you guys will have dealt with it, okay?
That's correct.
Now, moving on down the agenda. We're now down to 9F11. Resolution Air 2011-22, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly Public Transportation Department appropriating a grant funded by the Transfer Responsibilities Agreement in the amount of $416,645 for State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for the Municipal Municipal Share a Ride Program to the State Capital Grants Fund 231, Public Transportation Department. They're requesting, thank you. Ernie, you pulled that one, sir.
Yes, I did. I'd like to hold that for public hearing on February the 15th in order to give proper time for public notice.
What you want to do is move to approve, set for public hearing on 2/15/2011, sir.
So moved.
Is there a third?
Third.
Okay, we've got three.
Yeah.
Anything else, Ernie?
That's all.
That's approved by the body. Now, moving on the late on the table items, we're now down to F15, Ordinance AO 2011-18, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly submitted to the qualified voters of the municipality at a regular municipal election on April 5th, 2011, an advisory vote proposition on whether the municipality of Anchorage should require mandatory photo identification for sale of alcohol by packaged liquor stores. That was pulled by you, Pat. Debbie made a motion to introduce it.
I've been in conversations with the industry on a variety of topics, including this one. I'd like to see those to fruition before we introduce perhaps what might be a half measure as opposed to a more comprehensive approach.
The problem is it has to be introduced tonight, Pat, or it won't make it to the ballot. So I've already got a motion.
My only concern is this might give voters the improper impression that we have a comprehensive solution when at this point we have not thought through and addressed all the issues associated with alcohol sales this time.
Okay, appreciate that. Debbie, you want to make a motion on this? Is there a second? Do we have a third?
Third.
Okay. We've got three. Patrick, do you want to go on? We've got three to introduce, sir.
No, sir. If there's three to introduce, then there's nothing to introduce.
Okay. Any discussion from assembly members? Ask unanimous consent. Pat, do you want to vote no or yes? This is just for introduction, by the way, so we've got the votes we need to introduce this, so the vote's 10-1 for introduction. So this will appear in front of us on February 1st for a public hearing. Let's see. Next item in business.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
I apologize, but just a point of order, and I don't mean to slow things down, but
All right. I'm sorry.
there was not a 10-1 vote on that. There was no vote on it, on the ballot measure. There were just three moving to introduce it.
I'm sorry, I was asking for unanimous, but obviously you didn't hear me. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk, do you want to, I can...
But we don't have to vote on it.
No.
There are three who've moved to introduce it. That's
have
it.
enough.
It's introduced.
It's introduced.
That's all.
Okay. I know, sorry, I remembered you said something about that earlier. I apologize. When I get rolling on that stuff, I'm sorry, Mike. Thanks for pointing it out. Okay, we're now down to, on the regular scheduled agenda, page 4, we're down to old business and unfinished action on public hearing items. We've already dealt with 11A, which is Larry Crawford. We're now down to 11B, and that was the AM 1-2011, 2011-2012 liquor license renewal, Birch Tree Dining, number 4528, Ding Hao Restaurant, number 4123, Samurai Sushi Garden, number 4521.
Move to approve.
Second.
Bifurcated action pending, no motion pending. So we've got a motion to approve. Discussion. Paul?
Yes, and these, as we went through and did the processing of the licensees, these were deemed that it was essentially an anomaly, a one-time issue that was addressed properly.
Okay.
So, no protest.
Is there any objection to approval of this item by the body? See no objection. Patrick, any objection to approval of that item? This is item 11B.
No objection, sir.
Madam Clerk, that item is approved by the body. Next item in front of us is item 11C. 11C is the same memorandum AM 2-2011, 2011-2012 liquor license renewals, Asia Garden, Brandy's number 83, Carousel Lounge number 200, Beverage Dispensary, Clerk's Office.
Move to approve. I have a question, though.
Yes, ma'am.
Carousel is here again. Is this, do you want a bifurcation on this, Mr. Honeman or Mr.?
I have to sign that.
Paul, what do you want to do with it?
I believe we've already dealt with that with Carousel. If I'm not mistaken, we've already had it through a resolution that was previously adopted, so.
Okay.
We should bifurcate.
We've got to deal with it, so just make a motion to approve it. And
Move to approve Asia Gardens Brandy's number 83, or do you want to move for bifurcation, sir?
no, go ahead and do the Asia Gardens one.
All right.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from assembly members on Asian Garden?
You've got a certain number of licenses left on the agenda. And if
Okay.
you take them up one at a time, you need to bifurcate. Take them up one at a time.
I wasn't going to take it up. Just let it go through.
Well, which should pull as your garden?
No, she was... Debbie, you were approving Asia Gardens, right?
Yes, sir. I asked first if you wanted a motion for bifurcation, and you said no, so I just moved the one of them.
Or do we need... Okay.
Carousel's also on there.
So we already took care of Carousel, didn't we?
Not on this item, you took care of another item.
The clerk's correcting me, I'm sorry. Debbie?
Yes, sir.
You were right, ma'am, the first time. Making the motion to bifurcate the issue.
Thank you. So moved.
Seconded.
I love her being here. She corrects me where I get a little carried away. Thank you, Barbara. I appreciate it. Is there any objection to bifurcation? Patrick, any objection?
No objection.
Okay. The issue in front of us has been bifurcated. Now, if we could get a motion on Asia Gardens separately.
Move to approve Asia Gardens Brandy's number 83.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion from assembly members? Mike?
No, thank you. Sorry, sir, I didn't realize I was in the queue.
Ask unanimous consent on Asia Gardens. Is there any objection? Patrick, any objection to Asia Gardens?
No objection, sir.
Thank you, sir. That one's approved. Now let's deal with the Carousel Lounge. And that was the other one. Mike? Paul? We got your other motion on the Carousel Lounge. What do you want to do with this? What section of it? Just move to approve it?
Move to approve.
Wait a minute.
Get a second?
No, hold it. Withdraw that second.
Julia? What's the proper thing on this one?
Fine.
As I understood from the suggestion that the municipal clerk had ahead of this, is that this would be postponed indefinitely since the action had already been taken
Okay.
on the AM that was specific to the Carousel Lounge.
The advice of council, let's move to postpone this one indefinitely.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second, is there any objection from the body? Patrick, do you object?
No objection, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Then, advice of council and with the consent of the assembly, we've postponed this one indefinitely. And this deals with the Carousel Lounge. Moving back to the other page, the back side of this. We now have in front of us item 11D, a same memorandum, AM 3-2011, 2011-2012 liquor license renewal to Go Mart, 71-3732, Costco Wholesale number 10-number 2020, package store.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Anything from you two gentlemen on this thing?
No, sir.
Okay. Any other comments? Any objection to approval of this item? Not seeing any. Pat, do you approve or disapprove of the acceptance of this item?
No objection, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. That item is approved, Madam Clerk. That's item 11D. Item 11E is same memorandum, AM 4-2011, 2011-2012 liquor license renewal, Rum Runners Old Town Bar and Grill, number 4157, Blue Fox, number 140. Paul?
Move to approve on the Blue Fox 140.
Do you want to bifurcate the issue?
Need to bifurcate. Move to bifurcate.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded to bifurcate. Is there any objection? Pat, do you object to bifurcation? That separates Blue Fox out from Rum Runners. Seeing no objection, that item is approved. I now entertain a motion on the Blue Fox.
Move to approve the Blue Fox.
Second.
Number 140.
Moved and seconded to approve the Blue Fox's liquor license. Is there any objection from the body? Whatever, Blue Fox liquor license. Patrick, any objection? Thank you. Madam Clerk, that item is approved. Now let's go back to the 2011-2012. Yes, sir.
Move to postpone indefinitely Rum Runners Old Town Bar and Grill number 4157.
Second.
Moved and seconded to postpone indefinitely. Is there any objection from the body? Patrick? Madam Clerk, that item is approved. Okay, we're now down to item 11F, a same memorandum AM 5-2011, 2011-2012 liquor license renewals. 2 Go Mart number 2803, to Go Mart 15 number 4054. And that was bifurcated and action postponed from the last time we met. Patrick, Paul and Mike, what do you guys want to do
Move
with
to
that?
approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No.
Okay. That's unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, Patrick? Thank you, sir. That item is approved, Madam Clerk. That completes where we're at on the agenda. We're now down to appearances request, and we have 2 minutes. So, we can't take it for 2 minutes, Teresa.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
While we have 2 minutes to spare, I think I could fill that with some hot air, if you don't mind. Just an observation on this.
Grandkids say when I'm blowing balloons up for them.
Just an observation on the process we've just gone through. It's been my observation since I've been associated with the municipality and particularly the assembly that these licenses, this process is designed to really kind of zip through with minimal look from the assembly. And Mr. Holman and I decided to take a look at a couple of these, and it really threw a wrench into the works, which is not what our intention was. But I think that it would behoove us, and I know Mr. Honeman has intentions in this direction, is to come up with a better way to deal with these licenses so that if there is something we want to look at, and there is something the body wants to say, yeah, you know what, this is serious, and we want you to take it seriously as a licensee, that we can do it without all of the pomp and circumstance that and the parliamentary procedure that we've had to go through in this process. The vast majority of these licensees, no problem. Not a problem at all. They're doing great. They're doing great by the standards that both the state and municipality have set. But when we tried to take a closer look at a couple of them, we really unintentionally kind of squirreled up the process. So maybe I think we need a better process. And I hope that filled 2 minutes for
Well, hopefully we'll get a better process, because I am concerned about some of the licenses, like I told you with Asian Gardens. When I hear from a family member that they were told by a server, if you're old enough to drive, you're old enough to drink here, that concerns me. If that's being done there, where else is that statement being put out? Elvie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to thank Mr. Honeman and Mr. Gutierrez for attempting to do what they were attempting to do. I understood it. And Mr. Gutierrez is right. We need to take a closer look. And, you know, all of us have lots of paperwork to look at, and thank you for taking that closer look. And we do need to come up with a better process, and I'm sure that we will, since we're into meetings as early as we are lately. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. We're now down to our agenda on item 12A, parents' request. We have one, Teresa Nagel Obermeyer, Ph.D., regarding possible resolution for confirmation of Alaska Permanent Fund Board by Alaska Legislature. Sure. Goodbye. Teresa, you've got 3 minutes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. And thank you, Mr. Trainee, for allowing me an appearance request. Teresa Obermeyer, ladies and gentlemen. I just had a couple of things to mention. One is, why has everything happened? It's about this little book, The American Law Reports Forth. It is every lawyer and judge in the United States of America's stock and trade. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it has always been about Ted Stevens' law license. May he rest in peace. Then I just wanted to mention, tonight you talked about a total of almost 100 million in bonds, or over 100 million. Even that is another scam, ladies and gentlemen. It's a couple of lawyers that want us all to believe we need bonded indebtedness when we have a permanent fund that has like $39 billion. And I always laugh and have a joke. And when I first came on the school board, I said, well, I can't count that high. I can't count that many zeros. And then I started counting the zeros, bringing my calculator. Nothing added up and nothing cross-referenced. And I'm supposed to be a puppet for a superintendent. I'm a thinking human being, and I'm an American. So let's realize what this term bonded indebtedness really is. Another buzzword about the permanent fund money. In today's newspaper was the big graph and chart all about the permanent fund. I don't know whether you saw the newspaper. This newspaper is such propaganda now. It's like it's all the status quo, and there's no advocacy at all. Of course, our media is about 95 or over % owned in many states of the lower 48, and it's not about us. Let's figure these things out. Then I just wanted to mention very briefly Pick, Click, and Give, which to me should be a turning point. And would you forgive me, it is funded by, and has been funded by the Rasmussen Foundation. I have a long history with Ed Rasmussen, and I like Ed Rasmussen. I wish I could motivate Ed Rasmussen. I doubt it. He's still sitting over there in his same office at Wells Fargo. His foundation is on the 4th floor, and that's $425 million. I'm supposed to be impressed after I sued the University of Alaska when he was chairman of the Board of Regents, and at the end of it I had to pay $17,161. That was like 25 years ago. Let's be nice to Ed and let's motivate Ed. Let's help Ed. But then lastly, I wanted to bring up, if you would really consider a resolution, I just suggest that you do it in alphabetical order by name. I don't want anyone to get in trouble. I'm really fighting for my children. I don't want my children to live in a place that is this corrupt, that a handful of people have hundreds of millions and billions, and we're all supposed to be the worker bees. I'm an American, and I believe in equality. So then I also passed to you about Bill Moran, the main person right now, who's increased the holdings of his 2 privately held banks over 300% the first 3 years he was on the permanent fund board. I hope you'll check the website.
Thank you, Doctor.
And then just lastly, there are 4 resolutions on this website. I gave you the Fairbanks City Council one tonight. Just do this alphabetically. We'll see whether Dan signs it. I mean, let's see if Mayor Sullivan will sign. I would love that if he would. It's up to him. It's up to all of you, and I'm just glad I came by, because I do believe in the idealism of our great nation. Did anyone have a question? I am so glad if you people get out of here early for a change. I do sometimes watch you on TV, and I commend you. I really do. Did anyone have a...
Thank you, Doctor. There are no questions, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and have a great week.
Take care. Let's see. We're down now to continued public hearings there are none, new public hearings there are none, special orders there is none, unfinished agenda there is none. Audience participation. Is there anybody that wants to come talk to the Assembly about any issue? Anything at all?
And I wanted to thank you for setting aside the different liquor licenses, because we are having a serious problem with date rape, as well as on the corner at Muldoon and DeBar, there's a lot of traffic accidents due to too many liquor licenses right next to the Muldoon bus area, where the people have to actually cross the street to catch another bus. I just wanted to throw that at you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anybody else wish to address the Assembly on any item? Not seeing anybody. We're now down to Assembly comments. Harriet? Chris? We're on. Elby? I think we should be working. No, what'd you say? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. The system seems to have disintegrated. Jennifer?
I wish we'd done a poll tonight.
No. My goal was 7:30, and we're out of here early. Bill? Ernie? Paul? I'll get to him. Well, they're going to public safety, so yes, you'll have to, sir. Mike?
Echo Mr. Hardeman's comments, and while I don't endorse gambling, I too wish we'd done a pool tonight. Thank you.
Well, we should bring forth by initiative to get lotto gambling up here. Anyway, Debbie? Patrick? Anything for the body? Okay, you're moving to adjourn. We're done. We're out of here. Good night.
Oh, my Lord. Well, Debbie, you were right.